Welcome to Old Classic Car. The sun is shining, but there is an air of melancholy around here because, sadly, after 15 years of ownership, the oldie Morris, the 1932 Morris Minor, is off to a new home. Tomorrow it will be here no more. This will be a very sad day indeed, but after 15 years I think it is probably time it moves on to a new, better home where it stands more of a chance of actually hitting the road sometime soon. Now, long-term followers of the Old Classic Car channel may well remember that over the last couple of years I've done one or maybe two videos talking about just sort of thinning things down a little bit here. I did find myself a few years ago with quite a few non-running vehicles dotted around the place, and it soon became obvious, especially when I passed a significant birthday a couple of years ago, that getting all these things done just was not going to happen. And you'll see in the background over there the little A40 sat in the garage, and that has been a long-term project for more years than I care to remember. And I came to the conclusion that the only way that that was going to ever stand a chance of getting back on the road is if I prioritise that as the one main project here in the garage at home. I don't mind having one or two things that just need looking after, but I only really want one full-on project, and that car has to be the little Austin A40. If you're new to the channel, I'll just provide a bit of background info on that particular car. It's been in the family since new, when it was bought in 1960. I remember it as a child in the 1970s riding in the back of it. I took my test in it at the end of 1987, and I used it as my first car on the road while I was putting the finishing touches to my Mark III Spitfire in the late 1980s. So it's got loads of family history, loads of family associations, and that car has to be done one way or another. And the only way I can realistically do that is by clearing the decks of some of the other non-running project cars. So that's the idea of the little Morris going. I really don't want to see it go. I love pre-war cars. Cars of the 1920s and the 1930s have just got so much character. I mean, look at that wonderful little car, little two-seat, open-top two-seater, and I just have visions of using that for local jollies, local road runs, going to the shops, going to the pub, all that kind of thing. But to be honest, it's not going to happen anytime soon, and I really also need a little bit more space in the garage, because with the A40 wedged over there and this in there, it just doesn't really work very well at all. There are certain things you need when you plan to rebuild a car. Money, of course, you need the parts, which I've got most of them now, and you need space and time, and you need all those things, and without each of those boxes ticked, it's just not going to happen. It just won't happen at all, and I've come to realise that over the last few years. Hence the big old Comma truck that used to be sat there, that went. The Ford Model AA truck, which wasn't all that far from being on the road, I think, that one went. And yeah, it's just been a case of rejigging things a little bit to have fewer vehicles that kind of work already, hence the Renault arriving and the Dodge pickup last year. So that's the kind of the way I've been going, moving away from vehicles that need loads and loads of work to just one full-on project, and then the others there or thereabouts. So, in response to an advert that I had running for several weeks online on a very well-known classic car sales website, a gentleman came the other day and really loved the look of this. He's restored old cars before, classic cars of the 50s and the 1960s. He hasn't had a pre-war car before, but he seemed to really like this little Morris, and I can well understand why. So this one has been advertised, but not just this one, because there is also an advert running for the little Ford Anglia. Now, you might be a little bit surprised to hear that, and I'm a little bit surprised to be saying it, but I came to the conclusion that with the Renault there, that's a very small engined, fairly slow little car for pottering around locally, and the pickup, which is fairly slow even though it's got a big engine, and that's great for driving around locally. But the Anglia is another little small engine car that is great for driving around locally in, but nothing is really a distance car. So with great reluctance, I've also had the Anglia up for sale, and I think at the time of recording this the advert is still running. I've had a few inquiries about it. Even a gentleman in Malta seemed quite interested and intrigued by it. I think he was probably attracted by the fact that it is such an original little car. If you go on Car and Classic, you'll see the advert running on there at the moment, but of course if it sells, then the advert will disappear. So you might be watching this and the advert will have already been deleted by the time you watch this, but as of today, August 2023, the advert is still running on there. So the idea, the Morris will go, the Anglia will go, hopefully, at some point, and then those two may be replaced by one vehicle with a slightly larger engine and a little bit more suited to longer trips. I would still like to have something pre-war here, because I do really love the pre-war cars. So if I can find a pre-war car, maybe early 1930s, not so much late 30s, but early 1930s, that's reasonably long-legged and will cruise along at 45, 50 miles an hour perhaps on A roads comfortably, then maybe something like that might become an option and become a viable purchase. So sell one big project, one small engine little car, and replace them with one vehicle, slightly larger engine and a bit longer legged. That's the theory anyway. I know I've spoken about this before in the past, and that is still the thinking, because I'm trying to move away from lots and lots of fixing to actually using these cars, because that's what I get most pleasure from. I like tinkering, don't get me wrong, I like fettling and looking after these things. In terms of projects, I really just want the single project, i.e. the Austin A40, so hence the little Morris will go tomorrow. That's why we've rolled it out and they've just been pumping the tyres up, and I will get the spare bits and bobs together today also, so it's all ready to go tomorrow afternoon, and it'll be a sad day, but I think it's a sensible thing to do. And you know, if you watch YouTube quite a lot and you follow many channels, you'll see that loads of people end up with lots of non-running vehicles and not really getting anywhere with them anytime soon. And the people who tend to progress vehicles when they've got lots and lots of vehicles dotted around tend to be in the classic car restoration world, and they have all the kits, the space, the equipment, the time, the knowledge and the skills to really dive in and get on with these things in a fairly short space of time. But they are probably few and far between. Most people tend to accumulate things like I do, but don't really progress them as quickly as they'd like. They usually get over the line one way or another, but it can take quite a long time. And to be honest, you know, sometimes you just have to be a little bit sensible. There's a lot to do around here, not just in the garage, but around the, you know, anyone with a house will know there's always things to do around the house. There's always things to fix, things that need repairing, fixing a lawnmowers. I was stripping the motor of the washing machine only the other day to put new brushes in the motor to get that working again. So there's always so much to do, so much pressure on time, and then all the usual family stuff, household stuff, that kind of thing. And you know, sometimes you just have to cut back a little bit on the hobby side of things and just focus and really prioritise the cars that mean the most to you. And in this case, it's the little Austin A40. So that's just a little bit of background information on why, sadly, genuinely, with great reluctance, I'm letting the little Morris go. I know one or two of you follow the channel because you are fond of the little Morris Minor, and trust me, I am really fond of it as well. But I think bearing all this in mind is probably the right thing to do, and it will get replaced by something hopefully equally charismatic, but hopefully also something that works or is almost in usable condition. So here it is, pretty much all ready to go. You may have noticed I did a video only a couple of months or so ago getting it running after many years of not having run. The difference is now I've put all the front end panels back on because I took the wings and the bonnet off just to make it a little bit easier to work on the front end of the car. But for advertising it made sense to put it all back together so you can see what it is that's up for sale. I've got all the loose bits in the back there. People who know their Morrises and their Morris Minors will recognise that those seats aren't actually original. Originally it would have had a bench seat, but the car actually came with a bench seat when I bought it 15 years ago, but it was a bench seat out of an old coach, and when you sort of took the old vinyl cover that someone had put on it, it was just like the old moquette trim, so it wasn't the original seat, and it was in a pretty poor state, so I chucked that away. But these seats came with a body shell from a minor saloon that I found years and years ago, and I thought those in green, a bit tatty but in green, will just look perfect inside this little green Minor. Lovely little car. I do like this one so much, but I really do need the space and just to sort of clear my head a little bit of projects. Here it is, all ready to go. The trusty old Bedford lorry foot pump came up trumps, just pumping the tyres up a little bit just to make sure it rolls easily tomorrow when the gentleman who's buying it comes to pick it up. It's such a bonny little car. And they're so hard to find in this sort of condition now. There are lots of restored ones out there. I was looking at adverts for some restored Miners only the other day. But when you look at them closely, they've got like some of the wrong lights on them, or they're just not quite right, you know, whereas at least these ones where they've just been parked up are usually pretty much correct. Yeah, there might be one or two things that have changed or been altered over the years, because I mean, after all, it is what, 90 odd years old now, so things do get changed and worked on and kept going, but it's all, yeah, it's all in period parts, and that's the main thing. There's a spare radiator surround here. This was re-chromed. It's got some grease on it. I put some grease on it just to help protect it many years ago, and that'll go with it, as will these old wings. I've got those years and years ago as well. They've been stored away, so I thought, well, they may as well go with it. They're in repairable condition, not brilliant, but they're certainly better than nothing, so they may as well go with it as well. Yeah, it'll be a sad day tomorrow when that goes. It really, really will. You know, I don't take these sort of decisions lightly by any means, but after 15 years of owning it, sometimes you have to be a little bit realistic. Yeah, what a cool little thing this is. So what do you reckon, Hal? Is it a shame to see it go?
It is, but I think it's the right thing to do.
This has to be the priority, really.
Yeah.
I need the space, the time, the energy, and the funds to sort of get this one sorted out.
Just concentrate on that.
Yeah, well, that's the idea, just have one big project. And like I say, because I've got several things which don't drive very quickly, I think the Anglia will probably go to, which again I will really miss that, because if you've seen previous videos on the channel, you'll know how fond I am of super original cars like this one, and they don't come much more original than this beautiful little Anglia.
It's kind of ironic because this is one of the sort of most reliable cars.
Yeah.
But I do agree, I think it does need to
If I had more space, then I would keep this one as well.
Time.
Well, I could extend the garage, but you only end up filling it if you extend the garage, and the idea is not to make more work, but just to have fewer things. Yeah, it runs really, really nicely. It's a really quiet engine in that one. It's a good old thing. But, you know, you can't keep everything, and if that goes, and the Morris goes tomorrow, then, you know.
The Standard will be able to go in the garage.
Yeah. But at least they'll have a little bit more space, and then this can be moved out into the middle of the garage. Yeah, move it out there, and then we can do a little bit. So that's the game plan anyway. If you know of anyone who's interested in buying an old Anglia, point them in the direction of Car and Classic, like I say, because it's on there at the moment. Whether it goes or not, I do not know. We shall see. But I thought I'd give it a try anyway. When the other option is to maybe let the Renault go, but you know, I'm not sure. They're quite a niche car, they are. But I mean, I wouldn't rule it out if someone came along and said, "Will you sell the Renault?" Then I might well do. I don't know. I'm open to persuasion. In which case, if the Renault went, then this would probably stay. You know, so who knows what's going to happen? But yeah, the idea is 2 out, 1 in, and make a bit of space. I'm sure you all know what this is. Well, the big day has arrived. The Morris is off to a new home. Kind of a shame, but it's in good hands. And like they say, close of one chapter, the start of a new chapter. What will replace it? Will anything replace it? That's the big question, but I'm sure something else will come along before too long. Always makes me laugh just how narrow the tyres are on these little cars from the 1930s. How tiny is that? I think these are 350 19s, yeah, 350 19 tyres, and often I've seen cars like this marked, and the tyres are marked up as sidecar tyres. So maybe they shared the same wheel size as these little pre-war miners, but they do look so skinny. Yeah, this will be a lovely little car to drive around in once it's all fully recommissioned back on the roads. Heading over to North Wales this is, so perfect for little trips to the seaside, I think. So there we go, all loaded up, ready for its shortest journey over to North Wales and a new home close to the seaside. A great little trailer as well, only just fitted on. It's quite a narrow little car as these ramps come out, so the wheel's just about fitted. Yeah, off she goes. Kind of sad, but yeah, on to the next thing.